Okay, we are live. Welcome everybody to the Big East Coast podcast. No audio issues today, hopefully. I think we're good so far. Anyway, I'm Rob. That is Chris. It is Monday, December 12th, 2016. And yeah, Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. This is my last podcast as a 24-year-old, so I have to climb over one hill for the rest of the week, and then next week when we do it, I'll be my first podcast as a 25-year-old. So,
Wow. Actually, it is also my birthday in a couple weeks. 2 weeks from yesterday, actually.
yes. So Rob is a Christmas baby. If you haven't figured it out yet,
It's kind of annoying.
yes.
Yeah. So jump right in here. It was kind of a light week again. It's gonna be a lighter week this week in that there are 2 off days, which is rarity. Actually, the first 2 off days of the year, I believe.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. I don't think we've had any situation where we've had no teams playing at all. So I think we've had like occasional days of where one team is playing, but no days. That's definitely yet to happen.
Which we even have a couple days this week where just one team is playing. So it's a light week. It's aside from Saturday, it is very tame. Actually, throughout college basketball, because finals week.
Yep.
Started last week and then goes to this week. And I don't think so much next week. I think most winter breaks start the end of this week just because of when Christmas is.
Yeah, I believe that that's correct. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Next week will be light just because of what time of year it is.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, you need a light week every now and then.
Oh yeah, no question. But yeah, going back to last week, a few notable things went down, especially so on Saturday where most of the teams in the conference played. The highlight of the day was probably Villanova coming back and defeating Notre Dame. And in Newark, a spirited effort by Josh Hart, who is certainly making a name for himself this year and putting himself into National Player of the Year contention among all the other freshmen that are around the country that are doing well. But certainly, if you're not paying attention to Josh Hart, one, I don't know what you're doing, and two, probably should start.
Yeah, and that game for Villanova, it was a little alarming because taken to him for a little bit there, and we haven't really seen that this year. Josh Hart, and that's how the game ended too, where he was the only player that could score. He had half their points, almost half their points, 30 of 74, but only double-digit scorer. But they got buckets when they needed to. They hit their free throws like they generally tend to do, and survived against a Notre Dame team who kind of built like Villanova, in that not a ton of freshmen that they rely on, and that's something that Mike Bray actually talked about earlier in the week. I think people perceived it as taking shots at Duke and Kentucky, but I don't think it actually was. I think it was more just trying to prop up teams like Notre Dame and Villanova a little bit more in the national landscape. But Notre Dame's a good team, Villanova's a good team, and it was a good game.
So my question now for you, as we roll along here, who do you think was the tougher opponent for Villanova? Do you think, I guess you could say the better win? Do you think at Purdue or versus Notre Dame on a neutral floor? Because both of those games, if my math is correct, and it may not be, but it looks like those are the only 2 games so far where Villanova has not won by at least 10 points. They, of course, beat Purdue by 3, and they beat Notre Dame by 8.
Yeah, I think Purdue might still ultimately be just a little bit better. Their losses to Villanova and Louisville, and then they really haven't had many close games against other teams. And, I think a true road game is probably better than a neutral site game, Newark's technically closer to Philadelphia than, South Bend. Obviously, Notre Dame has an fan base.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think Purdue going into a hostile environment like that, you got students to deal with who are usually more rowdy than just regular fans.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think Purdue's better, but they're both two very good wins, two of the better wins in the conference, really. And that's saying a lot because the conference has a lot of good wins.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and Villanova's going to take care of business the rest of their non-conference schedule against Temple and American, and then they open against DePaul. So they will be 13-0 going into the Creighton game.
Mm-hmm.
But flipping the coin here to Creighton, two nice wins this week. The Nebraska game got close for a little bit, then it wasn't. Actually, it started not being close, then it was, then it wasn't. And then just a beatdown of the Longwood team that we all kind of knew was going to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you look at Creighton, they're at 10-0 for the first time since one of the Dana Altman years, 2003, 2004, I believe it was.
Yes, that is correct, when they started off 12-0 that year.
Yes. Yeah, so, you're looking at a home game against Oral Roberts next Saturday, 8 days to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's not going to they go to Arizona State, who, Yeah,
the Sun Devils aren't exactly one of the better teams. They're 6-4 to this point with, no real bad losses, but they have no really good wins either. So, their best win right now per Ken Palm is against the San Diego State team that is clearly a shell of itself to this point.
Yeah. And then, so they should really finish off the non-conference portion undefeated, but then to open the Big East schedule against Seton Hall, where Creighton's bigs are kind of, Justin Patton's good, but the other ones are kind of a question mark compared to some of Seton Hall's bigs. It's a really nice way to get the non-conference schedule or the conference schedule going. But, obviously you'd like to see two undefeated teams play, especially in an environment like CenturyLink. You wish it would be at night, but I'm sure it'll still be filled.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's kind of where we're looking at on the path to the teams being undefeated, where I think Seton Hall's the only remaining obstacle.
Yeah, I definitely tend to agree here. And I want to flip the conversation here because I know there was a discussion yesterday on college basketball Twitter that was sort of interesting, I guess, to me. Do you think, and I guess Jeff Goodman of ESPN said that right now there's no dominant team in the country. Do you agree with that statement? And if not, do you think it's one of the teams that we just talked about?
Yeah, I think Duke has been pretty dominant as much as people don't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even playing with a full deck. And then, I think Villanova and Creighton are right up there. If you just look at just the undefeated teams, UCLA, they beat Kentucky, but other than that, not a ton of quality on their resume.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan, but they give up a lot of points.
Yeah.
That's alarming. And, that's one of the issues with Creighton, but that's kind of started to level off a little bit.
Yes.
You look at Baylor and their good wins that we've talked about. Gonzaga hasn't really – they don't play a ton of good teams. Well, they did play Florida.
Yeah.
And Arizona. But Arizona's not what they used to be. But to answer your question, I think Duke and Villanova, you could make an argument, are the two dominant teams. And I know Duke has a loss, to Kansas. There's no shame in that. But, no, I definitely think I would put Duke and Villanova kind of on the top tier of college basketball right now. And then, you go down a little bit. I think you have to have UCLA and Creighton there just by the virtue of them being undefeated.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. I think Nova has been pretty good, to say the least. They certainly, I guess it all depends on how you perceive the word dominance. But then again, Jeff Goodman didn't apparently think that the Kentucky team from 2 years ago that nearly went unbeaten was dominant because they played in a crappy SEC. But that's not really their fault. And they were like 30 and 40 balling teams with relative ease. It doesn't I didn't really understand that point, but
Well, yeah, Jeff Goodman, he's a really good NBA guy. Really good NBA guy. That's my compliment for him.
and here's my thing here. Everyone talks about how great the ACC is, and it is a great conference. But I saw Tom Stevenson of Anchor of Gold and Team Speed Kills. Was it Team Speed Kills? There's a big plug there. He brought up a good point, and it made me think about how things used to be for the Big East. No one ever really talks about how god awful the bottom of the ACC is.
No,
because for the past few years, the bottom of the ACC has been dreadful. So you can prop up. Oh yeah, they're Duke and Virginia and North Carolina and Louisville, all of them play in a really great conference. Well, yeah, but they've also played in a conference with a garbage Boston College program right now that's probably the worst Power 5 program in the country. I don't think that's even close to being across all of their sports, really. Wake Forest up until this year had been terrible. NC State had been pretty middling. Georgia Tech has been average, I guess. We were 12-19 2 years ago, 3-15 in conference. Va Tech won 2 games in the ACC 2 years ago. I mean, it's not like this is me talking about how things used to be like 5 or 6 years ago. This is only 2 years.
Yeah,
and
I think so far they've all been pretty good this year. But
yeah, but even then, Boston College is 4-5, and Georgia Tech's 5-3. I mean, those are like the two, and Syracuse is 6-3. I mean, they've all been pretty good, but it's like the bottom of the ACC is awful, and just like how the bottom of the Big East used to be awful when everyone was propping it up as the greatest conference ever. I mean, the year that they sent, all those teams to the tournament, they still had, a Seton Hall team that went 13-18. Rutgers went 15-17, along with Providence. South Florida was a terrible 10-23, who won 3 games in conference. And DePaul won 7 games and won 1 Big East game all year.
Well, that's because DePaul had that stretch when they lost 32 straight Big East games.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, you can prop up all these conferences all you want, but at least talk about how bad the bottom of the barrel is.
Yeah.
You don't need to slight Kentucky for playing a crappy SEC when the fact is that, it's not like the teams in the ACC play a bunch of juggernauts every week.
No, exactly.
Every conference has their bad points.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to go by percentage of the conference that's good, I think the Big East is probably right up there right now with 80% of the teams could probably give you a good game. Maybe depending on who St. John's matches up with, which we'll get into St. John's a little bit later.
We will.
There's some stuff to talk about with them.
There certainly is.
Yeah, no, I mean it's, and you don't need to have a dominant team after 10 games either.
No, I mean it's not super necessary, but
you're a third of the way through the regular season and a quarter of the way through the season if you count all the tournaments and stuff.
Yeah.
You don't need it.
No, you don't.
So yeah,
I get that, everyone gets drawn to super teams and whatnot. It's fun. Look what happened with the Cubs. Look what happens with the Warriors. Look what happened with the Yankees of the late '90s. Everyone gets fascinated with dynasties and whatnot because either you root for them to succeed or everyone wants them to fail. I get that, but it's not necessary to really have a dominant team within the first third of the season.
Yeah, no. So that's a strange argument. Like I said, Jeff Goodman, very good NBA guy. That's
he tends to kind of know what he's talking about with like NBA prospects and whatnot, but
really not a fan of St. John's for whatever reason. Makes it known.
I don't know. I think it's like beyond teasing. It's just weird.
It's excessive.
Yeah.
All right. We can't do the next undefeated team to lose anymore because Butler kind of took care of that, and that's not a bad loss.
No, it's just
they didn't play very well.
Yeah.
And it's what happened to the Hoosiers too earlier in the year. I mean, it's hard. Most Indiana schools are good at basketball. Winning on the road is hard. When you put them together,
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not they bounce back very well against a Cincinnati team that people tell me all the time are apparently good and have been good. The only 5 Cincinnati games I've watched since they left the Big East have been against Butler and Xavier. So that's my impression of them. I don't watch the American. I watched like the end of their tournament game when they lost to UConn last year. So that's my impression too. I've never seen Cincinnati win a game.
It's just they're just a very atypical Mick Cronin team this year, as they've been, as his numbers would indicate. They're very strong defensively, and they're above average at best offensively. But usually that's the reason why most Cincinnati teams don't make super huge runs in the postseason or whatever, because they don't really ever have guys who can. I mean, with the exception of Sean Kilpatrick, but even then, Sean Kilpatrick wasn't the most efficient. I mean, he was an efficient offensive player, but he wasn't out of your. He wasn't going to shoot the lights out in the gym.
And no offense, but Corey Copen's really the American's best player.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, with UConn struggles, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, Cincy will win the American, and I mean that's suddenly looking like a 2 or 3 bid league. They're having trouble. That's a league that needs UConn to be good. The whole knock on the Big East was, Villanova and Georgetown have to be good. Well, I mean, Villanova has been good the whole time, but the American actually needs UConn to be good.
I do like what I'm seeing from Houston for them. We'll cut the AAC talk real quickly, but I do like what I'm seeing from Houston. But yeah, yes. I do agree that it was a very good win for Butler over Cincinnati, especially in the circumstances in play, bouncing back from a tough road loss, which was basically the blueprint of why these high major programs don't go on road games to face mid-major programs, because that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah.
But hopefully, and I guess Butler isn't really the type to be afraid to play, lower tiered schools in Indiana on the road. But, that's the kind of game that would scare a team into thinking, oh, maybe we shouldn't go on the road and play these other schools in our state that aren't up to par with us.
No, but I mean, now the nice thing for Butler is, you'd like to beat Indiana, but if you don't, you're probably still looking at a 10-win non-conference schedule.
Yeah. And that's all you could really ask for.
Yeah, I mean, you still got the wins against Utah and Arizona, and Northwestern might look okay at the end of the year. Cincinnati, I don't think Butler's going to be on the bubble, though. I think they're going to be there. Because if you take the 10 wins and then you figure, Ken Pom has them 11-7 in conference.
So 22 wins.
Yeah, right to that, you're at 22 going into the Big East tournament.
And if they finally win a Big East tournament game, then,
I think Butler's pretty good, and they got a lot of guys who can beat you, and Chris Holtman's not afraid to change things up, as shown when Keelan Martin did not start the other day.
Yeah, that is correct. Keelan he had his struggles against Indiana State. Probably one of the worst games of his college career. I would say he's kind of gotten it going, but he's been in a bit of a rough stretch ever since the Vanderbilt game.
Yeah. Are you concerned at all with how they're using or not using Joey Brunk?
It's like I told you, and it's like I had pondered in the beginning of the season. I think it's easier to hide an inexperienced big than it is to hide an inexperienced guard. That's why I think that the likes of Kamar Baldwin and Henry Badley have been used in the fashion that they have. So, I mean, he's playing behind Travis and Weidman, both of whom are a senior and junior respectively, as well as Nate Fowler, who's a sophomore, who's certainly playing very well. So I'm not really concerned. You have your concerns about Joey Brunk, and they're fair. While his minutes are down, his usage rate is pretty high, at least according to KenPom. He's taken 19% of shots, and he's accounted for in 21.8 of their possessions. So
yeah, I mean, he's got a couple games where he didn't make it off the bench, but it was Vandy, Utah, and the Indiana State game. So
yeah,
they're using him where they see fit, I guess. And
I think it's just tough because it's like, oh, Butler's always done this in a way where experience will tend to win out more often than not. And I think it's tough to tell guys like Travis and Weidman, hey, we're gonna take you off the floor for a little bit longer to let this freshman play.
Well, the only freshman bigs that have had an impact in the Big East since realignment are Angel Delgado and Henry Ellenson, really.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess you could say Jan Kupasima, even though he's no longer with the program anymore.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was, but we'll talk again. We'll save a lot of St. John stuff for later. But yeah, I'm not really concerned or worried about how they're using Brunk. I think that's just I think it's how the hierarchy works there.
Yeah.
I think it's much easier to hide a freshman big right now on that team, which is heavy on experience and low, than it is to hide a Kamar Baldwin or Henry Bradley.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Especially in the case of Baldwin, where it was kind of position of need. They needed a guy to step in and kind of be like Roosevelt Jones was for them last year, and Baldwin has been good on both ends this year. So.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Butler. The majority of these guys will be back next year, at least.
Yeah.
Martin and Weidman, and probably Brunk will slide in. Baldwin will slide into the starting lineup. So.
Yep.
They have a very nice recruiting class next year too.
Yes.
Not unlike Xavier.
That is correct. Good
segue.
segue.
So yeah, Xavier lost another road game.
They did.
Good team. And that's something that happens. And I mean, they need to be commended for the scheduling.
Yes.
Not a lot of teams would play Baylor and Colorado in the same season on the road, and I don't think any team would play them back to back.
No. Definitely not.
And I don't, Xavier always builds this really nice non-conference schedule. I don't know if they still think they have something to prove, or if they just go out and play good teams.
Yeah, I think it might be a little bit of what the hell's the word? Collection of both. And I think that they're just one of the, more recognizable programs in the country. So, teams will be, champing at the bit to face them. And I think with Xavier, I think if we could just quickly transition to, their performances this week, their win over Utah and their loss against Colorado. I think looking at their, Ken Pump scouting report and any metric that they have, there's an obvious weakness right now. They can't shoot.
Yeah.
They can't shoot. Their 2-point percentage is incredibly average. If not, I mean, it's only 2 percentage points barely above the national average, and their 3-point percentage is down 2% of the national average.
And where Trayvon Bluett's the only guy who can get it going for him.
Yeah, because Edmund Sumner's issue this year, and I know Banners on the Parkway talked about it, and we had it in our morning fast break this morning. Sumner he doesn't have a jump shot this year, which is a problem, especially for a guy who's trying to make the league and might take a jump to the NBA after this year. He does not have much of a jumper, and his 3-point percentage is still way down from where it was last year, which is saying something since he shot only 30% from three last year, now shooting 22.7% to start the year. It's not great.
Yeah. No. I mean, and they're still 8-2. They're still a very good team. They still have Miles Davis back at some point. Rasheed Gaston's been a very nice pickup. But yeah, they just need the luck to turn a little bit, have their shots start falling, and J.P. McCurry had a really nice game against Utah, which he needed after the last two. And
yeah.
Against Baylor and Colorado, I don't know if you realized all of his points came from shooting threes. Well,
I did not realize that. No.
6 threes against Baylor, and then I believe he had 6 more against Colorado.
Huh.
So, he's and that's something he's kind of working on. He's always a good 3-point shooter, so he's trying to keep that going. So yeah, I mean, I think he's a guy who will be in the conversation for Big East Player of the Year, but it's looking more and more like it's going to be Josh Hart's to lose because
definitely.
As the National Player of the Year, which I think he is right now, he's got to win the Conference Player of the Year.
Yeah, definitely. And, with Xavier, I think it mostly comes down to whether you trust a Chris Mack Xavier team to bounce back and shoot well. And for much of his tenure there, the Musketeers have shot pretty well. And they've shot all right from three. The worst finish they had in three-point shooting was 238th, but that was back in 2011. Since then, it's been 127, 113, 151, 131, 93. I don't think they're going to finish at 240.
No.
I think they are going to eventually take a bump up, and I think that overall they're going to eventually become a better shooting team. But
well, and it is still a relatively small sample. 10 games, and they went 2 for 22 against Missouri. So
yeah, of course,
you got that hanging over you. You talk about Chris Mack. I think Xavier fans are really going to miss him when he's at Missouri or Illinois next year.
Can we not?
Both would be a huge step back, so neither of those will happen.
I think Illinois would be a bigger step back for Mizzou at this point, even with Mizzou's athletic department in total shambles.
Jeremiah Tillman coming in still, so
that's true.
But Chris Mack's not going to leave. He went to Xavier. He's got a great recruiting class coming in next year. McCurry will be back. Blue could be back. Sumner could be back. So we're not even going to start that because that is ridiculous.
No.
We didn't talk, and I know we don't like to go, game by game or team by team, but Seton Hall, they went to Hawaii and they won 2 really ugly games. Actually, all 4 of those games played in Hawaii were not. And, it's like when they used to play on the aircraft carriers and stuff. They're not going for, great bet. There's a bigger point to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, the sight lines were weird, and you could tell by the shooting it was all off. But, again, bigger point, it was a really nice event to go down there. And that win against Cal will probably end up being pretty good looking back. And they have a chance again tonight to do some more damage against South Carolina.
They do, and the big thing with that game, of course, is the fact that Sindarius Thornwell, South Carolina's best player by far, is still suspended due to violation of team rules. He is making the trip, but will be on the bench, so he will not be playing. It certainly helps Seton Hall a lot that Thornwell isn't playing, because Thornwell, when he's in the lineup, is incredibly impactful. And they still have good players. Dwayne Notice, Malik Kotsar, Mike Kotsar, and PJ Dozier, and Justin McKee as well, and Chris Silva. But even then, no one's, I don't think, is the caliber of Thornwell on that team. And I think this is definitely a winnable game for Seton Hall right now. It's at 49% for win probability, so it's basically a coin flip game. But they are aided by the fact that it is at Madison Square Garden, an arena they certainly have had their fair share of success at in the past.
Yeah, I think Seton Hall and South Carolina are built very similarly.
Mm-hmm.
They each have 1 or 2 bigs that they kind of feed a lot. And I think any other year, Angel Delgado would probably be one of your front runners for Big East Player of the Year right now, because he's had a very nice year.
Yeah, he's becoming Mr. Consistency. If you look at his numbers through the course of his 3 years at Seton Hall, they are pretty much the same.
Yeah, and with most guys, you'd be like, there's no growth or anything. But if you got a guy averaging essentially a double every year,
there's not much wrong with that.
Right now he's at 13 and 10. Last year he was at 9.9 and 9.3, and his freshman year is at 9.3 and 9.8. So
yeah.
You know what you're going to get from him.
And I do like the fact that he is drawing 6 fouls per 40 minutes. So he's getting to the free throw line, but he has to also improve from the free throw line, because his percentage right now is down from last year. And I know
well, they don't have anyone that can hit free throws except
Seton Hall has been a bad free throw shooting team, and for whatever reason, they've been a bad free throw shooting team throughout most of Kevin Willard's time there, except for 2014, which is looking more like an outlier than anything. I don't know why, or I don't know for what, but For some reason, Seton Hall can't hit free throws.
Do you want to talk about Kadeem Carrington?
Yeah, I could spend a couple, like a minute or so on him. If you're surprised at all by the fact that he's shooting 55% from three, which is a big mark, and it's probably not going. That kind of mark probably isn't sustainable over a full season. However, under your nose, he has been turning into a quality three-point shooter. I did an article about him a couple days ago, which you can find on BigEastCoastBias.com. And over the past 30 games, he's shot 37.6%. Now you might think, oh, that's under 40%. That's probably not a good mark. Well, if that mark was put over a full season last year, it would have been in the company of the following: Chris Dunn, Marcus Derrickson, Keelan Martin, Miles Davis, Ron Mavlika, Jalen Brunson, Isaiah Zierden, Desi Rodriguez, and Chris Jenkins, all of whom were at least 1 percentage point ahead of him or 0.4 percentage points behind him. That's good company.
Pretty good.
Pretty good company. And over his last 15 games, he's knocked down 36 of 76 three-pointers, 47.4%. Over his last 18 games, he's shot 45.1% from three. So he is taking strides to improve his three-point percentage now. I'm curious, of course, to see what happens when the shots aren't falling, whether that'll knock his confidence or not. But he's already put in a full season of work, and he's put up competent numbers. So I think he's finally taking the leap into becoming a competent and reliable three-point shooter, which Seton Hall certainly is benefiting from this year.
So, Seton Hall, I think throughout Kevin Willard's tenure, always been pretty good in the non-conference, and the bottom kind of falls out in Big East every year except for last year. Is that something that you see them avoiding this year?
I think it really comes down to whether or not their offense stays consistent, because I think that's been the biggest problem for them. I thought it might have been their defense. When I looked it up for their first 8 or 9 games, I forgot whether it was before the Hawaii and Cal games that I said I was going to do that, and I think it was. Most of their marks were pretty much the same from where they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
So defensively, it kind of looks like they may have taken a slight step back. And obviously when you lose, guys like Whitehead and Derek Gordon, you're going to feel that effect. But I think that the main issue for this team is whether they can stay consistent on offense, because it obviously plagued them in the Stanford game, and they couldn't make enough plays in the Florida game against the talented Gators team. So as long as their offense stays up to par, I think they can certainly avoid, the dreaded second half collapse that they've gone through over the past couple of years.
Yeah. Okay. And the strange thing about Seton Hall is, just a little spoiler here for our power rankings. From what I saw, they're actually going to lose a spot, and it's not really their fault. But Providence just keeps doing remarkable things.
Yes.
And I really nice week for them. Actually, even if you want to go back to the Rhode Island game, which we talked about, they didn't lose to Brown, and that had been the only team to beat them at the Dunkin' Donuts Center under Ed Cooley. So I believe they're about 42-1 now.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be a year where Providence picked 9th to finish in the Big East. And it was supposed to be a rebuild for them, but they did not seem to get the memo.
No, they certainly did not get that memo, and it's looking more and more like that was kind of a ridiculous notion to ignore the fact that they had quite a lot of complimentary players from those teams with Dunn and Bentel and, Henton from when he was around as well. And yeah, they've been, like you said, they've been doing remarkable things. They don't have their 2 losses are to Ohio State and Virginia. There's no shame in any of that. They're going to likely walk in to Big East play 11-2, assuming they do take care of Wagner, Maine, and Boston College, which they in all likelihood should. And you enter with 11 wins in conference, get a few good things going your way. You could make a run at the tournament.
Yeah.
getting in there as a high seed as in high number.
Well, Ken Pom also has them projected to lose at Marquette, which isn't going to happen. So,
yeah, they've lost every game.
Oh yeah,
Marquette.
I got it wrong. I messed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, they're probably going to avoid playing Wednesday in the Big East tournament unless something goes. I don't know who's going to play Wednesday. Actually, I mean,
I don't know either.
I imagine DePaul and St. John's will, but Wednesday's not what it used to be.
No, certainly not.
So, yeah, I mean, if you go into the Big East tournament at 19-12, with your losses being against the likes of Ohio State, Virginia, probably Xavier. You could throw Butler in there, Villanova.
Yeah, and Creighton, I guess.
If you're only losing to NCAA tournament team, I mean that's pretty significant.
Yeah, it's a nice place. It's a nice place to be at. But yeah, I do like what I'm seeing from the Friars, especially from the fact that they are shooting the 3-point ball very well, which is not usually a staple of Ed Cooley teams. But it seems like they finally have the type of players to make it happen.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, if you look at Providence Twitter, the player they've been most impressed with this year, I think, has been Jalen Lindsey.
Yes.
Who has kind of taken that step forward.
Yes, and it certainly would indicate that based on his numbers. His usage rate isn't the highest, but...
No, and I mean, he was highly touted.
Yes.
Coming out of high school. And I think Edmund Holt's been a lot better than anyone could have expected.
Yeah. I agree with that, too.
He's pretty good from the little bit you saw of him at Indiana. And then, obviously had to take last year off. Was very good at junior college with Tredarius McCollum, who's been one of the highlights for DePaul.
Mm-hmm.
And, Edmund Holt's been a big-time player. Rodney Bullock's kind of taken that Ben Bentel leap forward. And Karen Cartwright, the turnovers are a little troubling.
But in defense of him, Chris Dunn did turn the ball over a lot too.
Oh yeah, so Providence kind of going to be a wild card this year.
Yes.
All right, let's see. Marquette had a tough time against Fresno and then lost to Wisconsin.
Yeah, Marquette's margin for error now is incredibly thin. They lost all their real good opportunities to get a big win. Their biggest win in the non-conference now is Georgia. It's not great. I think they're going to be kicking themselves for their performance at MSG more so the loss on Saturday.
Yep.
So Marquette now has to hope that success goes their way in the Big East, and unfortunately for them, based on what we have from them in the first 10 games, I don't know necessarily if it plays out to their favor.
No, and Caden Reinhardt isn't really working out. But if you just look at the guys that Steve Wojciechowski's brought in his tenure, Cheatham has been very good. Sam Hauser's been good. Tracy Carter's been good when he's on the floor. Marcus Howard has been very good. So I mean, if you kind of take away Reinhardt, who was a miss, and a couple of the other Buzz Williams holdovers that are still around, you can kind of see that Marquette's probably going to be all right going forward.
Yeah.
There's really no reason to fire Wojo, which is something Marquette talk about after. It's actually something that fans of every team talk about every time they lose a game, firing the coach, which will be something that's never done in the middle of the season, first of all, because there's no reason to do it in the middle of the season. And, so don't talk about firing coaches. Maybe at the end of the year you can talk about it. Not with Wojo, though, because he's got a nice recruiting class coming in, too.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's 51st in the country, but it's 6th in the Big East. Maybe they'll make an addition or two. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, Jamal Cain is certainly a good player. So there's still talent on this team. It's just kind of young, and they need to develop. Actually,
this is a little surprising to me. In bracketology last week, Marquette was in one of the play-in games.
Huh.
Obviously,
well, I guess yeah.
Probably not now, but They were, and Seton Hall was actually in the first four out. So if you want to take it that way, like you said, I still think probably beating Michigan or Pitt would have been helpful because automatically those probably would have been one of their best wins instead of going to Georgia.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think they're in a position where they need to win the Big East tournament or bust, but their margin for error is growing pretty slim.
Yeah, and I'm looking right now. Someone had cracked sidewalks had quoted something from Paint Touches, which is a very good Marquette blog. He was kind of recollected everything since Marquette's off this week. Saying how what we talked about, how they're 7-3, their one quality win is against Georgia, 3 quality losses is nothing special, not enough, but enough to keep an NCAA tournament bid in sight right now. And he mentions that this so far is the best Marquette offense since the 2003 team that went to the Final Four, which of course had Dwayne Wade. So that's pretty good company to be in. But the problem is, as Paint Touches would go on to say, the defense right now is historically bad. It's the worst since 2005, and the second worst in the KenPom era, which dates back, of course, to the 2001-2002 season. So they can't get stops.
Well, and I think Marquette's they're kind of looking like where they were last year.
Yeah.
They're gonna probably go into Big East play with 10 wins or so. They're 9 wins. And, they won 20 games last year, but none of them were really that inspired except for Wisconsin. I mean, they beat who they should have beat in conference play, and that's about it.
Yep.
So it's got to get frustrating after a while, but they're going to need to pick up a win or two down the line that is good.
I do agree, and I think that, Paint Touches brings up the point that he thinks that, that their scheme might need some tweaking because he doesn't think it's the personnel necessarily. But, that's Marquette's issue.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's see. DePaul lost to Temple. They played really well in the second half, which is something they've been doing lately.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't really matter if you get down by enough points in the first half. But, they got a bunch of winnable games coming up. So hopefully they pick up some wins. All right, St. John's. Oh, Georgetown did some stuff too. No, they beat LaSalle. I think they beat someone else. No, they only had one game this week. They must have had finals this week. So they beat LaSalle in Miami. It was pretty good. A win at the Carrier Dome this weekend could go a long way for them.
Do agree.
Okay, St. John's. Oh, man. Well, they actually started the week really well. Well, kind of, I guess. They were in a close game with Northridge, but had a nice dominating win over Fordham, and then really struggled pretty hard against LIU Brooklyn, and now have 2 sub-290 KenPom losses, which you don't want to take one of those. But that's not the point here. They didn't have Marcus Levette yesterday, probably still should have won, etc., etc. But, again, and I think we talked about this last week, stop talking about firing Chris Mullen. That's not going to happen. It's a ridiculous concept. I think people forget already that, Chris Mullen came in and inherited a St. John's team who lost, I want to say, 95% of their minutes. At least. All right, let's see. D'Angelo Harrison left. Rasheed Jordan went to the NBA. Well, declared for the NBA. Sir Dominic Pointer went to the NBA. Phil Green went to the NBA. Chris O'Beckpa transferred. Jamal Branch went to the NBA. So if you're keeping track, that is their top 6 guys from KenPom in the last year of Steve Lavin. They were left with Mar Elbegovic and Felix Balmu. those are the only two that even had limited roles. The other three were in the bench warmers category. So Chris Mullin, who had never been a college head coach before, had to build a roster basically from nothing. That's not something you do in a year. That's not something you do in 2 years.
Nope.
You know, if you look at the good things this year, I mean, Jamori Pons, freshman of the week again. You know, keeping that New York City talent local. And you got to look at things like that. It can't always be about wins and losses. You know, they have a lot of nice players on the roster. And I think they just have to keep focusing on. I mean, they're another team where a win at the Carrier Dome could really go a long way for them. You know? But there are improvements from last year. And that's something we talked about last week, too. And we just have to keep talking about it, I guess. But they're much better offensively than they were last year, and it's not close.
Yeah, exceptionally better.
You know, they're shooting the three much better. Actually, the best three-point shooting team in the Big East, top 15 in the country. And that's been some – well, no, they're not. Creighton's the best, but second best. I forgot about Creighton. My bad. But, you know, and yeah, the losses aren't great. Believe me, the two teams, they should have beat Delaware State. They should have beat LIU Brooklyn. Absolutely. But the four other losses, I mean, they're not really that bad. I mean, at Minnesota, Michigan State, VCU, Old Dominion. They're games you'd like to win, but all in all, I don't think things are quite as bad for St. John's as people think they are, and I don't think they need to make a knee-jerk reaction for coaching change for, I mean, what coach is out there or going to be out there that you want? I mean, who's going to be the top name this year? John Gross? I mean, you're not going to get Brad Stevens back into college. I mean, it just people say these things and then they don't consider what comes next.
I mean, here's the thing. Mullen inherited a program that has from nothing.
Yeah.
Let's like you mentioned, they had nothing there, and anything that was a holdover from the Lavin era didn't play really up to par, which is why last year. Now, I don't think that firing Mullen would solve anything. Because over the past couple years or so, while St. John's has been they'd been either competing against, you know, the big time schools when the conference was a friggin' conglomerate, or had been, you know, stuck in mud where they were under Lavin, where it was, you know, good but not great, and it was told by, you know, how they were recruiting, they weren't doing, you know, a great job.
Yeah.
But this year's class, second in the conference. Right now, you know, 2017, they haven't really done much. But recruiting cycle is not over.
Nope.
There's still plenty of opportunities for them to bring in players.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they don't, I mean, it's pretty obvious from the rosters they have right now. There's talent that still can be fleshed out, and is also young.
Yeah.
Who takes you know, enormous strides forward. I mean, Levin and Pons, they'll hopefully get better defensively, but right now offensively they've been top notch. I don't think that's arguable at this point. Both of them, especially Pons, have been absolutely dynamic. And more so efficient. It's not like, you know, they're taking a lot of shots. They're missing some. No, these are not only these two, you know, the best shooters in the conference. They're some of the best shooters in the entire country.
Yeah.
I mean, Pons right now for a freshman, it's ridiculous that his effective field goal percentage and 60% are both over 61%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Pons is incredibly young. I'm not even sure he's 19 yet, and if he is incredibly young for 19 years old.
Yeah.
So you know, the things to the things that the players that they brought in are doing are exceptional. And this isn't a situation where it's like where you can go off coaching record. It's not, a good look that, they're what? 13 games the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Not great, but roster sucks. If you want to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
They had nothing. They had to scrap together what they could. And now this year they have a much more talented last year. But the problem is the fact is that they're incredibly young.
Mm-hmm.
By experience, they are the third youngest team in the country. Fourth actually. When 348 games on Campbell, there are 351 teams in Division 1.
Yeah.
The average experience mark is 1.71 years. They're at 0.82.
Yeah.
Okay, and as far as experience, the other some of the other teams that are around, Mississippi State, they stink. Illinois, Chicago, Bradley, and then Kentucky, really good. But of course, Kentucky's good. John Calipari brings in and then there's Mizzou, who stinks. So what the hell do you expect?
Yeah, exactly. No, people just gotta chill, let things happen, and I saw yesterday, why'd they fire Steve Lavin? Well,
why did they fire Steve Lavin? You don't have to look for yourself.
No, they haven't won an NCAA tournament game since they didn't win one 11th last year, and that was the first time they made it in a while. Didn't win one that year. I don't think they won an NCAA tournament game under Steve Lavin. No, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
They haven't won an NCAA tournament game since. Was this Mike Jarvis?
Yeah, the friggin' Mike Jarvis.
Nope, didn't win that year either. Need to look this up now because it has been a while. All right, let's see. Season by season. 2000.
Okay. It's been like 16 years.
Yeah. They've had several coaches who they didn't win an NCAA tournament game with. They haven't won an NCAA tournament game since the Big Ten won the NCAA tournament. That's been a long time, man.
Yeah.
So, chill. Everything will be okay.
I mean, what were they doing with Steve Lavin that was so special? Like, are you really yearning for the Steve Lavin era? I know Steve Lavin is a nice guy. I get that, but that's what we're yearning for now. 21-12 was their best record under him.
Very good.
Say what?
Steve Lavin's very good on television.
Yeah.
And that might be a better role for him than being a head coach, as shown by how he hasn't had the head coaching job in the last 2 seasons.
I just don't get it. Why there's like a revisionist history about Steve Lavin.
No,
people were frustrated with him. The first year of the new Big East.
Well, and I think the closest thing to equate this to, be it Chris Mullen or even John Thompson to a lesser extent, for the entire time Jay Cutler was on the Bears, everyone wanted to cut him and sign someone better. Who's out there that's better? I mean, who is St. John's going to pull in that can be better than Chris Mullen?
I don't know.
I know it's in New York and all that, but you're not going to get a coach to leave. You're not going to get a guy. I don't think Archie Miller would leave for St. John's. I don't think Greg Marshall would leave for St. John's.
I think it's entirely possible that St. John's is where they're at right now. And their peak, I don't think their peak is at Steve Lavin level. I think they could get a little higher than that. But I think the game has changed so much since their golden era under Carnesecca, just because of how their dynamics work.
Yeah.
And how the dynamics of college basketball work now. You have kids, like you mentioned, it's important for them to get New York kids to stay in New York. Just like across the river, it's important for Seton Hall and other New Jersey schools to teach down in New Jersey.
Yep.
But what's the big thing right now with kids? It's AAU teams or going to play at other academies and whatnot. These kids, especially in basketball, to a lesser extent in football, they go everywhere anyway. They don't care about staying home. Yeah. Especially for basketball. These kids, they play all over the damn place.
Well, yeah. And, I mean, you look at the Maryland, Washington, D.C., Virginia area, those kids aren't staying down there anymore either.
No,
I mean, most of them are at Villanova.
Yeah, not immediately.
So, I mean, recruiting has changed. I think New York does have a lot of talent still that look at.
Of course.
They didn't keep Riley Elkins there. I think he's doing all right at Arizona.
Yeah.
But it's a process, and that's just something that you have to trust that it'll turn eventually.
Yeah, I get to the first year and a third with Mullen has been bad, but the Steve Lavin era wasn't exceptional. And if that's what we're yearning for now, then St. John's is basically conceding that they want to just be average.
I mean, they're going to win more than 8 games this year, probably.
Yeah, I would say.
So,
and it's like I said, and everyone not too long ago got frustrated with what was going on with the Lavin era.
Yeah.
And everyone wanted something different. But now, because it's gotten off to a bad start now, this person wanting to go back in to be complacent and average.
Yeah.
No one wanted that. And everyone was. The problem with St. John's was, they had a lot of talent, but they weren't winning.
Yep. Exactly.
Which I guess kind of sounds familiar, but that's what was Lavin's deal, right? I mean, they started off that one year when they started off 0-5 in the Big East.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay. I don't know. I don't think that you don't fire a coach every year in a third.
No.
Not even after 2.
I think we're about over an hour here, so we should probably let's see. Nothing's really happening before Saturday. I mean, we talked about Seton Hall in South Carolina. That's literally it before Saturday.
Well, we have Villanova Temple tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Well, do we even – again, there's no reason to talk about Villanova in Big 5 games at this point.
17 for the last 17.
I know last year Jalen Brunson balled out against Temple. Look for that again, maybe. Yeah, but other than that, Saturday's big. Saturday's big for college basketball in general. If you thought this Saturday was fun, wait till next Saturday. Kentucky, North Carolina is happening. Indiana, Butler is happening. Notre Dame, Purdue will be good. UCLA, Ohio State will be fun. And then, I mean, if you just want to talk about the Big East, Georgetown, Syracuse is always good. That's on ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be oh, man. Who did the Big East tournament?
McDonough and
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be those two.
No.
But, still be a lot of fun. Last game with Jim Boeheim had Syracuse against Georgetown. Wake Forest, Xavier generally produce some good games. I think last Saturday was a bigger day for the Big East than it was nationally, and I think this Saturday is a bigger day nationally than it is for the Big East, with a couple exceptions.
That sounds about right.
But, it's still a lot of fun games. You get to watch Creighton against a very overmatched opponent, which is always fun. Providence against Wagner. So, yeah, there's a couple games worth watching just in terms of Big East, but it's a fairly light week, as we talked about with finals and stuff. So, yeah, that'll about do it here.
That will.
You know, if you're one of the people taking finals, good luck.
Yes.
Have fun with that. Finals are terrible.
One final note I mentioned on the Twitter account. The Butler Indiana matchup is the first time ever that both Butler and Indiana will be ranked while playing each other.
Yeah. So
usually it's just been one or the other, or none at all. But it was confirmed today. Indiana's number 9, Butler's number 18.
Okay, I mean that's gonna be a good game. I think you know that's gonna be good. Notre Dame Purdue's gonna be good. You know, a lot of fun to be had at that event. So yeah, that'll do it here.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm Rob. That's Chris. Thank you for listening to Big East Coast Podcast. We will be back next Monday. So look for that. Goodbye.